All right, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie oh, geez. I already screwed it up. Welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Today I've got Lauren Hardy on the show. Super pumped to have her. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. So Lauren Hardy is a real estate investor with a people-first approach to business. Investing in hundreds of properties in her career, Lauren has the unique reputation of being a successful virtual investor, having not lived in many of the states she's invested in. She currently lives in Southern California with her two daughters, but invests in properties all over the country. Welcome again to the show, Lauren. I know we had some issues getting on here and getting to go. Your mic had an issue, then my mouse died.
Oh yeah, it is not our day, Danny.
So we'll make the best of it, though. We'll try to reset. And then I screwed up the intro even for the first time ever out of 200 and something episodes. But anyway.
Well, we'll make it through. You know what? I think we're going to make it through, but hopefully my sound is okay. If not, guys, I apologize. My mic broke right before this. So.
All right. And I'm going to start like I always do. I want to find out more about Lauren and how you got interested in real estate and how you got your start. Just tell your story.
Ooh, how far back do you want me to go?
As far as you want to go back.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go as far back as me starting as a house flipper. So I got started in this business around 2012. I was about 25 years old and I had just had my daughter about a year prior. So I had like a 1-year-old and she was crazy and fun. And I was working a corporate job. I actually worked in corporate real estate and it was on the commercial side. So that was like my first start into real estate. I always knew I wanted to get into real estate and I thought I was going to be this, maybe a corporate, like working maybe for a large development company or something. That's what I thought my path would take me. But when I had my daughter, I realized that being a full-time worker for any corporate job is very difficult when you have an infant who gets a cold like every 7 days. And it was very difficult to juggle the balance between being a mom and having this full-time job. I would literally drop my kid off at like 7:30 in the morning, get to work by 8. I would leave work by 5. The daycare would close at 5:30. I would race. I was always late. I'd be there by 5:45.
Oh, man.
And I would hang out with my daughter, like go home, make dinner, put her to bed like an hour and a half later. Really, I spent no time with her. There was even this moment where it was so sad when my daughter was 5 months old. She actually cried and grabbed onto the babysitter when I came to pick her up.
No.
I went through this phase where she literally, like, I was a stranger to her.
Yeah.
So it was so depressing. I became solely focused on finding something that I could do from home. So I did not have to work full time like that. I wanted to really work around my daughter. Like I wanted something where I can work from home, but still be there, as her primary caretaker. So I started doing some research. And I really didn't know what business I was going to be in, but honestly, you could have told me like I would sell peanuts or something. I would have done it. Like I would have done anything. So it just so happened that I was barbecuing with my brother on a Sunday and he had started flipping houses a couple years prior. And it was a slow start. I think he maybe was on his 3rd or 4th property. And he was starting to gain some traction. He started feeling comfortable with it. And he was like, Lauren, you should really think about doing what I do because you could work from home, Reese could stay home with you. And, really how much money do you have to make to replace your income? Like when you think about how much you made at your job, which at the time I was making $55,000 a year.
It's pretty good.
And, for California, it wasn't a whole lot. It was enough where I could pay the bills combined with my, husband at the time. I'm divorced now, but it wasn't a whole lot, So when you thought of childcare, because I was spending I think about $800 a month in childcare. I remember basically I did the math and my brother Dustin was like, how much do you actually have to make? Like when you factor in that you're not going to have to pay childcare, like what do you have to make to supplement your income to be able to quit this corporate job? Well, it also turned out that at the moment I was pregnant with my second child. So childcare just doubled, right?
Yeah.
So I came up with the number and it was like $36,000 a year was all I had to make to be at the same place where I was right then and there with my full-time job. My brother was like, oh my gosh, that's like one deal in California, like maybe two. That's all you have to do. Flip 2 houses in California.
Yeah.
You will be fine. You might even make more money. And I was like, sign me up. How do I get started in this house flipping thing? So he gave me some education. Back then, guys, it was not on online platforms. They used to come in CDs, like in a binder, like a physical binder. And I would pop CDs on my commute to work and back. And I listened to that education course in 1 week. And I started my first direct mail campaign 7 days later. Swear to God.
Those were the best though. Some of those CD courses, I listened the heck out of Ron LeGrand's courses. I don't know which one you had, but
Mike Cantu, he's local here. So it was perfect because he was local.
Nice.
And so his course really spoke to like where, I was. So it was amazing. Best course ever. Fun fact, full circle. I interviewed Mike Cantu on the Wholesaling Inc. podcast.
Oh, nice.
I did. He didn't know who I was. I had to stalk him. I tracked him down. Like I got his phone number and like, I was like, you made such a big difference in my life, blah, blah, blah. It turns out we live in the same city. Then we met for lunch. And now I see him when I'm running and he surfs. It's so full circle. But guys, like, just think like, the person that like you're listening to me on this podcast one day, and maybe I might say something interesting that inspires you and you still remember it 7 years later, right? And then 7 years later, you actually like are friends with me, right? It's that same thing. Okay. It was so epic. Anyway, okay. I fast forward, I digress. Going back. So I listened to the education course. 2012, we had just literally, we just got done with the recession. Okay. We're not in the recession, like as of the day I started real estate investing, basically.
Lucky.
I know I started at the funniest time. So I sent direct mail out. This is back in the day where you could send like 1,000 direct mail pieces and get a deal. It was so non-competitive. Nobody was doing direct mail at the time.
Really crazy.
It was crazy. And so this is my direct mail, by the way, my campaign. I would take letters. I did exactly what Mike Cantu said to say in the course. I copied his letter literally. And I paid somebody from Craigslist to stuff the envelopes and handwrite, because they didn't even have those machines that did that. Handwrite it. And she would put a forever stamp. I would use the Disney Pixar stamps.
Oh, nice.
And so it was a completely personalized direct mail piece. And I sent out maybe like 2,000 of them total. And it took me about 4 months to get my first house under contract. So I was sending them out like maybe 500 at a time. I was making offers. I was losing out. I got really close on one deal I'll never forget. And then Doug Van Soest, I still remember his name. He beat me to it. He got it because he was more experienced and the seller just could sniff it away that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it took me 4 months to get my first deal, but we finally got it. I flipped it with my brother. We teamed up. We had the agreement that I would bring in the deal and then he would find the financing. He would do everything else and he would teach me on the way. So we flipped it. The price, like the market prices were increasing as we held that property. It was just such a crazy moment in the market. So it appreciated 10% just during the hold. So my first deal, my brother and I net $67,000. I'll never forget. And we split it. And I go, okay, I'm not quitting my full-time job though. And I'm pregnant, right? My belly's getting bigger. And I'm like, I'm going to ride this thing out because I got maternity leave benefits. So I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to make sure we're going to find our next deal. So I found in that pregnancy, as we still owned that first home, I found another deal just like it. It was like the same deal. And it was in it like as the city next door. It was like literally the exact same numbers, swear to God.
Nice.
And
so how far was that from the first one? So 4 months to the first one. Second one was how?
Another 3 months, maybe.
3 months.
Because I want to say it was like we got that one under contract when the other one was on the market. So I still, it was like I started gaining some traction,
Yeah.
And so I sold that house. By the time I sold that house was around the last weeks of my maternity leave. And I said, I'm not going back to work if this house sells and I have a full month, I wanted a full year's salary in my bank account. So I closed it, got the money. I had a full year saved, called my boss, told him I wasn't going back.
Nice.
And that was it. That was the day that changed my life forever. I released the shackles of corporate life. And I now know what Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning is like. And so I got to take my kid to the park, and I
Yeah,
had a
that's awesome.
year of having a little baby, and I got to kind of experience all that I had missed with the first one. So it was super exciting. So super happy story. That's how I got started, guys. The rest has been a roller coaster. Okay. But that's my start.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get into that, right? Like get into where you've gone since then with it. I wanted to ask, you had your brother, right, that was doing some deals. And so did you ever have those doubtful moments that like maybe it worked for him and for other people, but I'm not going to be able to find one, or people aren't going to want to sell to me? Did you have any of those things come up?
When I first got started,
Mhm.
absolutely. Every 5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it was awful. I knew, especially when I hadn't even closed anything,
Mhm.
and I didn't even know like what I was doing. I remember that one of the sellers that I lost a deal to, for the one that I lost to Doug Van Soest, she says, well, this guy's a local guy, and he has letterhead. Like, he gave me his offer on company letterhead. Like, he has a real company. That's what she said. He has a real company. And like, fast forward, I'm like, oh my gosh, come on. Like, cause a letterhead, like I
Yeah,
lost
that's
the
interesting.
deal,
It's interesting what some people will go for. I mean,
right? But
getting that, or yeah.
what I learned a lot from that. You know what I did? I got myself a logo, letterhead, a website. I learned about establishing credibility,
Hmm.
because you need to convey to the seller that they can trust you and that you're not some fly by night. And if you don't
Right,
even have a website and you don't even have a logo, like, you could be a fly by night and they're not going to trust you.
right. And
So,
that's that concern is that this person that's coming over here to make an offer on my house, are they actually going to be able to do it?
right.
Right.
Are they
Where I'm
going to
going to make
really?
all these huge decisions and make all these big changes,
Mhm.
and have it not close is like a huge fear. I think it's right up there with whether they could get more money, is
Absolutely.
whether this person actually, and probably even more so than whether they could get more money, is the
Yeah.
question of, is this person really going to be able to do this?
Absolutely. And at the time I was like 25. I mean, look, you know, like,
Yeah,
I did not.
I dealt with that one too. I had several people ask me, so is your dad the one that buys the houses?
Well, you just look so young. I'm surprised I don't still ask you that. I
I'm
mean,
surprised I hear that now. Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, don't
It's
you
been about
always?
20 years since I heard that, but yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So moving into, and I asked that question about the doubts on getting a deal, because it seems like after getting that first one, there's no question anymore, right? About your ability to pick up more deals, right? Were
Mm,
you just like gung ho after that first one, or no, you still
abs-
had the fear in there?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Lived in doubt and fear for a very long time. And partially that's because of the market I was in. So I was in Southern California. A little bit about me: I live in Orange County, California. And at first, I was flipping houses in the neighboring counties. So Orange County, LA, Riverside, and San Bernardino. We had to have everybody here's got a big net, because it's hard to find deals. So you can't really be, choosy on where you'll
Yeah.
take them. And it was so hard to find deals. I mean, it really was difficult to not have a scarcity mindset. So, when I was, my first, say, 3 to 4 years, it was very much living deal to deal, going 4 months without anything under contract, and some sleepless nights wondering, when am I going to get the next deal? So I didn't like living that way. So I pivoted in a very big way after that, if you'd like me to get into that part of the story.
Nah.
No.
Of course. But how long was that though, from getting that, getting started and then making that pivot?
It was about 4 years.
Oh wow. Yeah. So you struggled with consistency, right? I mean, you were doing
Mhm.
deals, but it was just this fear of, I might not be able to get enough.
Right. And it's because it was very expensive where I live. So it's very difficult to convince a seller to take a discount on a house when they don't need
Oh,
to.
right, right, right.
Sellers have options where we're from. So
Yeah.
there was not as much seller distress. And what I realized is none of my friends in these mastermind groups I was in that are national had the same consistency problems as me. And I thought for the longest time, I thought, gosh, I think it's just because I'm a busy mom and maybe like I'm just not putting all my effort in it because like I'm kind of half brain dead because I don't sleep at night and like, like my kids are like screaming all the time in the background. Like I'm juggling a lot. I mean, maybe this is just like, I was blaming myself. I was thinking maybe I'm not that smart. Honestly, I was like, maybe I'm not getting it. I'm not that smart. There's something I'm missing here. But then there was this really pivotal moment. It's so funny, these little moments of your life that make a big deal, big difference. Like sometimes you look back at something like a memory, right? And you're like, that was actually a big day, like in your life, right? So I was always seeking out for education, trying to figure out how to build consistency in my business for at least 3 straight years. Like I was a part, I think me and you were, I guess, in a mastermind together at one point.
A 7-figure, I think.
7-figure flipping. It was around that time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I know it was with Justin.
It was around that time. It was 7-figure. I was in the 7-figure flipping, and that's part of the story. So I was in 7-figure. I went to a seminar in Nashville, and in this seminar, there were like maybe 15 people, and we hung out for like 2 days, I think, just all day. And it was like, the educators were just talking about all different things, right? Marketing and how to get deals and seller negotiating. And even I learned sub 2 and creative finance stuff, whatever. What that part was not as interesting to me. What was interesting is they were going around the table and everybody's like introducing themselves. And they're like, hi, like my name is Sandra. And I just started flipping houses 18 months ago. And I've done 375 deals since then. And I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm like wanting to kill myself, I'm like, okay, she's killing it. No. And I'm like, that's what? And then the next person be like, what's up? I'm Tom. And like, I started 4 months ago, already closed 55 deals. Like, and okay, obviously I'm totally exaggerating on their deal count, but that's what I was hearing. Right.
Yeah,
I was hearing like huge numbers, and I was just feeling like a pipsqueak. Like at most at that point, I think my biggest year was like maybe up 10 or 11 deals. And some of those were wholesales. So I was like, these numbers like 50, like what? Like crazy.
Yeah.
And they weren't even, I was more experienced than them. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, these people are so smart. They must be smarter than me. So as I spent 2 days with them, I realized they are not smarter than me. I was asking them a lot of questions about their habits. When do you start working? How many hours do you work a day?
Oh,
okay, wait, you work the same amount of hours. Okay. How many offers do you have to make to get one deal? And they were like the number was like 5, like 10. And I had to make 100. And I was like,
100. Wow.
Oh yeah.
And this is from like direct marketing to motivated sellers. I mean, this isn't listed property. Yeah. Wow.
This is like, I had to make 100 offers. I mean, I made an offer to anybody, right? So I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. What? Okay, hold on. Where do you live? Where do you live? Where do you live? Right? And I'm a California girl. I've never been anywhere else. So I'm like, okay, so what is the house? Like, let me look up Pittsburgh, and I'm looking on Zillow, and I'm like, this house is $65,000. And I'm putting it together. I'm like, okay, wait, lower price point equals more sellers that are willing to let their house go. Also, the amount of equity you're trying to capture is on a dollar, not percentage, but on a dollar for dollar, it's less. Like asking for a discount, asking for a 35% to 40% discount on a house that is $100,000 is much less than one that is $500,000. So when you're talking to a seller in California and you're trying to explain the margin you need to meet, and they're looking at it going, you want $150,000 like to take that away from me? No way, go pound sand. Yeah. Where, you go to another territory and it's like, well, the seller's looking at it. They're looking at their time it would have taken. They realize also the house needs a bunch of repairs. Like, oh, whatever. So I'm losing out on maybe 20 grand, but like,
Yeah.
you're saving me a ton of time. And in fact, I don't even have a contractor I know to fix up the house anyway. And like, I don't know any realtors, or I don't want people trailing through my home. Like there's way more motivation, guys. And the price point was the big thing. Okay. So I left that Nashville trip realizing it wasn't me, it's my market. So armed with that information, I was in 7-figure flipping. And I remember Andy McFarland was one of the coaches, and Justin started going virtual at the time. So I was like, wait, okay, if Justin, who's been killing it, is starting to look at other territories, that's an indication. There's a reason, right? Like, and then I talked to Andy, and Andy was the one person that had the perspective that I needed. He's like, Lauren, I partnered with somebody in SoCal one time in your market, and I sent direct mail, and the deal was I was going to do the acquisitions. They were going to do the dispositions. We would split everything. He's like, we did it for 1 month and I quit. It was the hardest market to get a deal ever. Like, and at the time, he was in 2 different territories. He was in like Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Indianapolis. So again, lower price point areas. He was like, forget it. Like, I don't want to deal with those types of sellers. Like, it was way too hard. So I said, do you think it would just be easier for me then to just figure out how to do this somewhere else? He's like, yeah, absolutely. That was all I needed. I needed somebody to just give me that surety, that confidence of like, absolutely take that risk, go somewhere else. So where did I go? I went to Nashville because I was just there.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, so there had to be all kinds of questions about who am I going to get to help me that's there? How am I going to structure all of that? So let's find out. What did you do?
Well, okay. When I was in Nashville for that seminar, one day I got on the road and I looked up all the recent flips in the area. I used ListSource, and I wanted to find the zip codes that had the most investor activity. And then I actually went to the properties to visit them and see what they look like. I just wanted to see, because with ListSource, I could see how much they were bought for. And I could see, like, I just want to see what the property looked like. And then I could look it up on Zillow and see if it's sold yet. And I was doing some stalking. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
So I got in my car. I stayed 1 extra day so I could do this. And I'm driving around the neighborhoods of Nashville, and I'm realizing that all the homes that I was looking at would say like maybe they were built in 1930 or 1940. But then when I would go visit the house, it was a brand new house there. And I was like, what? That's weird. Or sometimes there'd be 2 houses there and they're brand new. And I'd never seen anything like that because I'm from California and we're just already fully built. So I didn't really know what was going on. I'm driving around and there's houses under construction. There's old houses, and then there's brand new homes next to them. And I was like, wow, this is weird. This looks like a neighborhood that's transforming. And I thought that maybe this was just this neighborhood. So I saw somebody sitting outside of a job site, and he looked like he was the project manager. I pulled over, got out of my car. I was like, hey, I'm an investor. I flip houses. I'm just curious, like, what is going on around here? And he's like, oh yeah, we're building houses. That's what everybody's doing here. And so I picked his brain, I was like, okay, wait, so tell me, like, so you're building this house? He's like, yeah. So I actually found this deal, and I know a developer. So I pitched it to him and he bought it off of me, and then I'm building it for him.
Oh,
and I was
cool.
like, so you wholesaled it to him? He's like, I guess. He didn't know what that meant. So I was like, okay, so you wholesaled it to him. And I go, wait, how did you find this deal? I was like, oh, it was on the market. I was like, you were able to buy this on the market? Like, what? And I was like, what? Tell me the numbers. So he gives me the numbers. He's like, contract, the original home was like this. And then we had to put, this much money in it. And then we're probably going to sell it for this. And I was like, okay, that's rad. He's like, do you want to see more of my projects? I was like, yeah. So I got in my car and I followed him. I didn't get in his car because, safety, right? But I got in my car, I followed him around. He showed me like 4 of his projects because they all were in the same like area of East Nashville. And then he even took me on one that they were inspecting and doing their due diligence on.
Oh, nice.
So I saw the whole thing, and it was so crazy because they were talking to this seller, and it was this old home, and they were pretending they were going to buy the house. They're like looking under the foundation, like, oh, the foundation is really bad. And then after he goes, I don't care what the foundation is. I'm knocking the house down. I just want to I want to get it a little cheaper. I was like, okay. So I'm just like, I saw so much, right? My mind was blown. And so I told him, I said, hey, Phil, so like, if I wanted to do one of these, do you think you could find me a project just like you did that developer? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I want you to be my builder. I have money. I got this. And so he didn't think I was serious, but then I called him like every single week, like after, and I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, do you have a deal yet? Do you have a deal yet? And finally he called me. He's like, we got a lot there. We could build 2 houses on it. Gave me the specs. I knew I had to act on it because I had to prove myself. I didn't want to lose it. So I just said, let's do it. And that was my first virtual deal. I built 2 houses.
Wow. And you built houses. That's great. That's pretty intense. What
Yeah.
I like about that story is that you were at this event, right? You could have easily said, I've got all this stuff to learn, think about, do, and I can go home and think it through and maybe plan out some things I'm going to do. But you took a day to just like go out there and see what was going on in this other market, getting excited about it. And because of that, you stumbled upon something, right? Because you went out there and you took action right away. Even though that wasn't action to like go out and buy a house right away, you went and took action and like seeing what the area, the other market was like,
Yeah.
and then talking to people, right? I mean, that's huge. I think that's why I love talking about driving for dollars, because if you're willing to do that, you can learn so much and you can meet contractors, you can meet other investors, you can do all those things. And those are people that are doing things, not just somebody that you ran into at some conference where you don't really know if they're even doing anything. You're
Right.
talking to the people out there actually making things happen, which is who you want to know. And then your persistence, right? You had to show yourself, or prove yourself, but you called him and I've heard this all the time where somebody will tell me, hey, as soon as you find a deal, let me know.
Yeah.
And you never hear from them again.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to remember that person whenever I get a deal. I'm just putting it out to my list. But the people that would call me on a regular basis, even after I told them, I usually send them out to my list. Get on my list, you'll find out about it. But if someone keeps calling me, they'll catch me at that moment where I'm so busy that I'm like, yeah, I just got one. I haven't put it out yet. Go check it out. And guess what? They get it before I put it out to my list. And so I love that. I mean, there's so much there that anybody could use to do all kinds of things because you're just taking action. You're not giving up on it. So that's awesome.
No, it was crazy. It was crazy. And again, it's back to just these little moments in your life where, I'm talking to this guy and he had the energy felt right. Like there was something about him. I knew like, oh man, I can trust this guy. I mean, he just showed me around to 4 different houses. And like, I just, sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith. And I just took a leap of faith because I thought, well, there's nothing, these numbers don't exist where I live. These margins don't exist where I live. So it makes sense. I know my numbers. I know I can take calculated risks. And I knew the calculations. I was like, this does not exist where I live right now. So I need to figure out how to do this. And honestly, building a home from scratch across the country is not that hard because there's nothing the contractor can lie to you about as far as what's existing. Yeah. So as long as, I don't think we had any change orders. The only time there's change orders was like when maybe I became a designer and like wanted a different type of fixture or whatever, but otherwise it was actually quite easy. So that was one of the easiest projects I'd ever worked on were those homes. And we ended up building a few more. And then we also got into flipping there. Now flipping was when I was like, never mind, this stinks.
So what happened? What happened with that? I mean, what was the difference?
Okay. So my builder was not really doing flips. He was only doing new development. So he couldn't help me. So then I had to find a contractor to flip these houses in Nashville. And we just, they're change orders, oh, it turns out that we opened up the walls and it needs this. And oh, it's been raining really bad. And now it's snowing. And now this. It seems like when you're not there, they really take advantage. So what I recommend if you do want to flip from a distance is you need to either have some kind of project manager that's there, that's like representing you, or like a partner who's financially vested in it as well. That's local. So the contractor knows they're being watched. And, then I could see it working out just fine. But I did get into more wholesaling there. So I realized that wholesaling was much easier. It's a much easier model. And that was kind of the beginning of me becoming more of a volume wholesaler. I fell into more of a volume wholesaler model, and I moved to a different territory. I moved to Oklahoma City.
Hmm.
So from Nashville started getting very competitive and started feeling like California again. And I go, God, well, if I want to do this, I'd just be in my backyard, right?
Yeah.
Like it was getting so competitive. So I was like, let's just find like a bread and butter area that's not like going through any kind of extreme growth, a more just moderate type market. And Oklahoma City really fit the bill for that. So I ended up in Oklahoma City. We still are there. Fast forward years and years later, I'm in 4 different territories now.
Wow.
So yeah, we're 4 different territories. I don't do a lot of the day to day. I more manage everybody. So I'm fully scaled. And I now coach. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to find out more about that. But whenever you started doing the wholesaling, like what were you doing before you had it scaled out and you had the teams built in place? When you
mm.
made that move into Oklahoma City, how was it structured? Who did you have? What were you doing? Were you doing the marketing? Were you taking calls? Like how was that all structured?
So the marketing I still do for the company, like as far as marketing campaigns, that's something that I still do to this day. The first thing that I hired out was talking to sellers. I really don't like talking to sellers. I'm very good at it. I had to do it a lot. Remember, I told you I had to make 100 offers to get a deal.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
I am used to talking to really mean sellers. And I have developed scripts. So while I was talking to sellers for those years that I got started, I learned how to avoid getting yelled at, because remember, I'm making offers that are like $150,000 less than the seller had in their mind. Like
Right.
you're going to get sellers pretty pissed off at
Oh
you.
yeah.
So I developed scripts that just deliver the offer in the most like smooth, neutral way, so I don't get yelled at. I got very, very good on the phones with sellers and getting them to sign over the phone versus signing, having to meet them in person. Like that was the first thing I learned. The skill was just getting them to trust you enough to sign over the phone. So I
How are
taught
you
that.
looking at the properties then?
I wasn't. We were buying. So by the time we were virtual, everything was sight unseen. So we could get into that. So the first thing that I hired out was talking to the sellers, making the offers, basically the acquisitions role.
Mhm.
And I hired that person. He's been with me for 6 years now. Now he has a totally different job now.
But he wasn't there either, right? He's somewhere else.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was with me. So
Eh,
we hired him, and then hiring and scaling, I will say, is very difficult. If any educator is trying to really push scaling on you and rah, you can do it and it's so easy, I'm going to be the first person to tell you they're lying to you, and it's very hard. Scaling is not easy to do in this business. It is doable, but you still have to very, very much manage people. So I have been fully scaled. I haven't been in the role of talking to sellers. I don't talk to our end buyers. I am now more managing everybody, but that is tricky. So when people will like have this idea in their head that they just want to start this wholesale company and then like go to Peru and like not actually run it,
Yeah, yeah.
you're very much in the wrong mindset, because that's not you're going to have a failed company that costs you money. So
So I'm not going to let you get away with mentioning like your awesome scripts and being able to smoothly, but you don't have to give the entire scripts, but what's one little nugget about how to approach making that offer? Like what's one tip in like making an offer in such a smooth way that
Ooh, okay. Well, can I also let you in on a secret? I do give away one of my scripts for free. If you want me to do you want me to drop the URL, or later you can put it in the show notes? I do offer one of my scripts for free.
okay,
So,
yeah, go ahead and
so it's, if you guys go to laurenhardyco.com, so that's laurenhardyco.com, get the free seller script. So that's my first script.
I'm
So
gonna get
here's
that.
I'll take you through it. I'll take you through a couple really, really good nuggets. The first thing, when you are talking to the seller, your first job is to get them to like you. That's it. Get them to like you on that first call. So there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. go read that. To me, that's natural. Like, I feel like, I'm like, doesn't everybody like know these things? But no, some people are not naturally good conversationalists. So brush up on that. I like mirroring the seller's energy. I'm all about mirroring. So if the seller that you're talking to is very straight to the point, Mr. Serious Businessman, don't waste my time, you need to calm down the tone of your voice, match his tone, talk very straight to the point. Do not use extra words. Get right to the point. Get to it, because you're wasting his time and he's going to get irritated. If you have a sweet, friendly grandma on the phone, you're like, oh, hi, Mrs. Baker, how are you? Great to talk to you about that house. How did you even end up getting this home? Tell me all about it. Is that a dog I hear in the background? Oh my gosh, I have a dog too. What kind of dog is it? Like, that's how you mirror her, because she wants to talk. She's lonely, right? So get the seller to like you on that first call. Now, the big thing about not getting yelled at when you deliver your price. So
Not getting yelled. Like, it goes from
just-
like getting a contract to just not getting yelled at. Let's
Yeah,
start
let's
with not
talk-
getting yelled at.
Let's talk about just how to not get yelled at. Okay. When you're okay. So everybody hates making offers. Everybody hates it. Everyone hates it. You guys I know you will get 20 seller leads, but you're only going to talk to the ones that are nice grandmas, because you're scared that Mr. Serious guy is going to yell at you and whatever. After 300 students, I know what people do. So it is because you're scared of getting yelled at. So the first thing is, if you're so scared of getting yelled at, I really advise don't ask the seller what price they want, because that's only going to get in your head. And if the seller says some high price, which they are probably, because they're, you just surprise them. You ask them what they want. They're not going to be like, oh, I want, I know houses are going for 100,000, but you're so nice, I'm going to offer it for 60. No, nobody's going to do that. So don't ask the seller what the price is, because it's just going to psych you out and you're not going to want to.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before, but it's a good point.
I know. Yeah, that's a Laurenism. That's very unique to me. And a lot of people argue and say that's dumb, but I'm thinking about you. And what I saw with my students is they would psych themselves out so much they wouldn't make offers to sellers, because they were asking the seller their price. The seller would just respond, with an honest
Yeah, because
answer.
it's very rare that you're going to get somebody to give you a price that's lower than what you would have offered. I mean, that's pretty darn rare. So it's not like you're going to miss out on that.
No, yeah. So just don't even bother. Don't ask them. So what I say, I like to blame other people. So I say, okay, after the first call, I say, well, let me look up what houses are going for to other investors like me, because you know who I am and what I do. I'm going to look up what other investors are doing, because we always want to be competitive with, everybody in town. And I'm going to let you know, around what pricing we would need to be at after I do that research. Call them back and I say, hi, Mrs. Baker, it's Lauren. Okay, so it looks like, I did some research, and it looks like houses just like yours that were bought by other investors are going between $50,000 and $65,000. Does that make sense to you? And just pause. And if you're like me, who's a big loudmouth, I often have to put my hand over my mouth to pause, because I will then want to justify things, because you get nervous and get in your head and you want to just, but I mean, so just shut up and see if that makes sense. If Mrs. Baker says, yes, it makes sense, then you're great. You're in range. That range that you deliver needs to be where you would have accepted that house. Okay. That range is like, even if it was 65, like you would have taken 65.
Yeah.
But obviously
That's interesting, because you're getting a yes on a question, that's not agreeing to sell the house for that much, but it's, in essence, it's kind of agreeing to it.
Agreeing with me, like
Right.
that, you know what, I get where you're at. If they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. Then if they say, no, that doesn't make sense, you need to justify, I call it support your narrative. So your narrative is 50 to 65. You need to be able to support that narrative. If you can't, you are lowballing. You are. So if you can support your narrative with 3 comps, you're going to have a better chance of convincing Mrs. Baker that is the value of her home. So you explain, well, do you know this house 123 Main Street went for 58? We've got, whatever house on whatever street went for 56. And we've got this other one that went for, gosh, this one went for 48. I mean, that person really got a deal. So try to support your narrative. to show them, that, hey, don't kill the messenger here, but this is just what your neighbors have sold their homes for to other investors. Now, Mrs. Baker's like, okay, well, now she has to weigh out, that does she want to go through the hassle of putting it on the market? Does she have those means and resources, or does she want just a hassle-free sale? Now, it is my honest opinion that there's no amount of word gymnastics that you can say to make Mrs. Baker do something she doesn't want to do. And you shouldn't try. I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that. Instead, I just want to educate Mrs. Baker, and I want her to like me the most of all the investors she's talking to. So it's very no pressure. It's, hey, I gave you the facts. Our price point would need to be around there. So let me know when you're in that range. And I don't give her a firm price until she's in that range, until she says, okay, I can kind of see that now. Now that she's in range, I go back. I like to hang up the phone and say, can I call you in 5 minutes? Let me talk to my partner, because now I still want to blame it on other people. And I will call back and say, okay, I talked to my partner and I'm actually, pretty happy with this price. I was surprised. I thought it might come a little lower, but we're going to offer $55,000 for the home. And at this point now it's a back and forth, and it's keep following up and just being nice and being friendly. And usually if my team is really good at getting the deal over competition. So say there's Mrs. Baker's talking to 2 other people. Because Miss Baker likes me so much, because I remembered her dog's name and I'm friendly and I never was like a hard negotiator, which believe me, your competition they're hard negotiators. They read those books and, so Mrs. Baker is kind of, turned off by them. They're not as good with people as you are. I can usually get Mrs. Baker to reveal what the other guys are offering. So like, Ms. Baker, well, okay, so you got other people offering, well, what would they offer you? And if I can match it, like, hey, if I can get my partner to match it, would you sign with me? And there you go. We get it. Like, that's how you win. So.
Well, that's awesome. No, I mean, it's perfect. And I think the thing, I love all of the points that you made about making those offers and winning the friends and influencing by just being likable and treating somebody in a decent way. But that part about I've got to cover my mouth. I've got, because the whole thing, it all comes together, and this takes practice, obviously, but it comes together with that confidence, because she has to also feel that confidence within you that you said this and then you just shut up. Right. Because when you try to justify, then it's like, okay, they in their own minds think that that's not good enough either.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to convince themselves by saying all this stuff. So come on, it's such a subtle thing, but it's huge. It's huge.
And it was hard for me because I'm such a talker and I'm such a people pleaser naturally. So I know that, I'm giving an offer that she's not going to like. And so I feel like I have to justify it. So I would physically put my hand over my mouth so I wouldn't talk anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for all real estate investors, for even after years and years, is the challenge of going to the appointment saying, okay, I'm going to say something and then I'm going to be quiet. And there's going to be uncomfortable silences, and I'm going to be tempted to fill those by saying something, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to let the other person talk. And yeah, it's tough for me. It's still tough for me. We only have a couple minutes left. So I wanted to find out a little bit about your coaching and then how people can find you or reach out to you if they'd like to.
Oh, absolutely. So, after all of this, fast forward, what is it now, 9 years later? So I actually have a coaching program. I coach with Wholesaling Inc. And I also host their podcast. If you guys want to check me out, check out some of the podcasts I've done. And yeah, we coach virtual. So it's called Virtual Investing Mastery. And it is just a compilation of all of the mistakes I've made over the years, so you guys don't have to make them. I've got over 320 students so far in the program. We launched a little over a year ago. And we have some awesome students. Some students have done really, really well. I've had students as far away as India and Spain. Those are my furthest students. The guy in India is killing it. I'm really impressed with what my students have been able to do with their incomes. I mean, life-changing, going from a normal job or unemployed to making 6 figures their first year.
So they're wholesaling in India?
I have a guy wholesaling not properties in India.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, Indianapolis, from India to Indianapolis. But yeah,
That's good.
as far as their location, so it's virtual investing mastery. It's more geared towards, being able to do this business outside of your backyard. Although you can take what I say and do it in your backyard. Now you just don't have to go to seller appointments. So
Nice.
yeah. So if you want to learn more about me, I have a website, laurenhardyco.com. I've got a lot of free resources. We have a free mini course. You can click on the link there within there and get to the Wholesaling Inc. page. Or if you just want to go straight to that, it's virtualinvestingmastery.com. I'm also on Instagram. This Mom Flips is my Instagram handle. So if you guys just want to see what I'm about, check that out.
All right. And I'll include those in the show notes as well at flippingjunkie.com/207. It'll be episode 207. So we'll have those in there too, just in case you're driving, and 207 is easy to remember than whatever it is. But either way, you'll find her. So thank you so much, Lauren, for being on the show. I appreciate it.
No, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And I think we did do really well after the rough start and getting the whole podcast going.
Yeah. Did good, right? Great. I really tried to hone in on like beginner's mentality stuff. So
nice. All righty. Well, keep in touch.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Are you going to go